The right to protest and freedom of the press are cornerstones of our democracy. Journalists have the right to report on any form of protest and should not be prevented or in any way discouraged from doing their jobs. Hertfordshire Police Force's arrest of 3 journalists whilst they were covering a Just Stop All protest last month should not have happened. It is right that Hertfordshire Police apologise for the treatment the journalists received and that an independent review was undertaken to understand what happened and why, to prevent this from happening again in the future. We know that policing protest is a complex operational task requiring coordination between the police and central and local government partners to deliver an effective multi-agency response and to minimise disruption and protect the public, protesters and the police. The policing of protests in London is the operational responsibility of the Metropolitan Police Service and the Metropolitan Police Service Commissioner. Sir Mark Rowley's team know they have my full support and confidence when it comes to preventing serious disruption, keeping Londoners safe and keeping our city moving while facilitating the right to protest. I meet with the Commissioner regularly and we discuss a range of operational policing matters, including public order issues. The Just Stop All protests have prompted a major and complex operational response from the MPS, requiring coordinated action to police the protests safely and effectively. I've always been vocal about the importance of tackling the climate emergency and my support for the democratic right to peaceful protest. At the same time, I've always been clear that all protests must be carried out safely and lawfully and should not put Londoners, visitors or the capital's green economic recovery at risk. I want journalists in our city to feel safe and welcome to report on all protest activity without fear of arrest or reprisal. The Commissioner has assured me and my Deputy Mayor that he shares this fundamental belief, and the MPs is clear that the police are not here to stop journalists from reporting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, since the wrongful arrests of those journalists on the M25 on suspicion of conspiracy to commit public nuisance, I've spoken to journalist unions and journalists about the way they are policed when covering protests. Now, they all told me about the importance of their press cards, but I was told that operational frontline officers are not all sufficiently aware of the press card scheme, and this can lead to all sorts of difficulties, which is worrying for freedom of expression and also a massive waste of police time to be needlessly arresting journalists. So in light of those journalist arrests, can you confirm whether all Met officers who police protests have done the National Union of Journalists training on public order and the police?
Chair, I simply don't know. Can I take that away and write to you to give you an answer on that?
That would be much appreciated. There have been journalists arrested by the Met in this last year. There was, back in August, there was a My London journalist arrested in Hammersmith, and in October, an independent filmmaker was arrested on Shoreditch High Street.
I can do one of those cases, arrested the My London report, arrested in August. The case, I'm told, is distinct from the Hertfordshire cases because in this case the journalist was wrongly identified by a witness as somebody vandalising a petrol station. He was released once officers reviewed the video footage. My London acknowledged that the MPS had a responsibility to investigate the accusation that was made.
Yes, although, and I quote now from that journalist, you know, my hands were cuffed at the front, I had my pen in my mouth, I asked the officer to look at my press card, which he let me produce from my pocket. It didn't make any difference. So I just think that it is important that we check, and so I'm glad you're going to write to me about whether all Met officers are doing that NUJ training. Now, the NUJ and several organisations that stand up for human rights have recently written to the Home Secretary with concerns about the recently passed Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act, where the offence of intentionally or recklessly causing public nuisance was put into law. In their letter, they said this offence is too broad in scope and unduly limits a wide range of democratic activities like protest. Do you agree with me, the NUJ and others, that the powers in the Act are dangerously broad and pose a threat to human rights?
So I'm not going to talk about specific sections, so I've had a chance to read it recently and stuff, but in general terms, yeah, I think the government's in danger. By that, I'm not suggesting that some of them haven't got the best of intentions, but the unintended consequence is a fettering of not just the right to protest, cornerstone of our democracy, but the right to report. And I think the bill, in general terms, has gone too far.
So, Mark Rowley was in, the Commissioner was before a select committee yesterday asking for more clarity. Have you had any correspondence with the Home Secretary about these bills going through Parliament and protest?
So firstly, it's really important that the police without fear or favour. Their politics shouldn't matter. But there was a meeting convened by the Prime Minister and Home Secretary in Downing Street where that question of clarity was raised. I also raised the additional points at that meeting. I'm happy to write to the member to let her know what was discussed.
That would be very much appreciated. Thank you very much.